Hello, everybody. I'm recording here from my kitchen. Welcome. This is the first teaching video that I have ever made. So aren't you the lucky ones? Really, you're the privileged ones that get this. I hope everybody is remaining positive and happy at this time. You're not arguing over bandwidth and who gets to cook with your family. We're managing okay, I think, at the moment. So, as part of my contribution to keeping you happy and positive, we're going to talk a bit about our history course and, in particular, about Mao Zedong and the Cultural Revolution. Now, I've just done some work on the Great Leap Forward, this very strange period in Chinese history based on the idea of mass mobilization, that Chinese people are the greatest resource of China, and China doesn't have a great deal of capital or expertise to invest in its industrial and economic development. So it has to focus on its people, and this key idea of walking on two legs to try and find a strategy which puts together the peasant and the industrial worker, and they come up with this kind of incredible solution in the Great Leap Forward. And you saw the consequences of that with massive starvation, maybe 30 million people dying, and a huge environmental, social impact that came out of that. Now, the Cultural Revolution that we're going to briefly have a look at today comes out of that. And what I want to talk about are first of all, the factors behind the Cultural Revolution, so why it actually came to happen. Now, I think as you're all aware, the failures of the Great Leap Forward, the catastrophe of the Great Leap Forward, really damaged Mao Zedong's reputation, and a large part of understanding the Cultural Revolution that comes to pass in the late 1960s is Mao's kind of comeback. This is Mao's attempt to relaunch his career. You may have seen in the documentary that crazy clip where he swims for, I don't know, 16 kilometers along the Yangtze River, and it's all filmed as part of a big propaganda movie. So Mao is trying to relaunch his career, and it's part of a power struggle, really, against his rivals in the regime. His reputation is damaged. He says, "Oh, I don't like being treated like a dead ancestor." Chinese revere their ancestors. He's treated respectfully, but is ignored after the Great Leap Forward. And this is his way of undermining his rivals, especially Li Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping as his main rivals there. So he launches this, supported then by his allies, the more radical people in the regime, Jiang Qing, his wife, usually called Madame Mao because it's a bit easier to pronounce, and Lin Bao, who is the head of the military, kind of, and he's the man behind publishing all these millions of copies of the little. So he's using the Cultural Revolution to attack his rivals, and as you will see in the kind of the ferment and the chaos of the Cultural Revolution, Li Shaoqi is actually killed, and other rivals like Deng Xiaoping spends several years kind of in internal exile, where he's put to work as a car mechanic. Now, as well as the power struggle and Mao's kind of comeback, which is part of the Cultural Revolution, we also see this very important idea, an ideological idea. So ideology plays its role, and the ideology of permanent revolution. permanent revolution. So when Mao's regime look at the Soviet Union, remember since 1960 the Soviet Union has become a great rival, quite a hostile relationship now. When they look at the Soviet Union, of course, they see an elite, the so-called nomenklatura that have risen and take all the privileges, got nice flats, and they've got chauffeur-driven limousines and all that kind of stuff. And they look at that, and Mao's response is that you just have to keep shaking the ideologies, you have to keep shaking society. Society needs a big shake. Otherwise, an elite kind of forms. It's a little bit, like those Christmas decorations, we have to keep shaking them up, otherwise the snow kind of settles. The snow settles at the bottom. Yeah. So that's another part of this is this ideological idea called permanent revolution. That you have to keep shaking society up. That you have to undermine elites that form. Now, Mao, of course, is not included himself in that. He lives a really rather privileged life with his strange habits and his swimming pools and his young girlfriends and all that kind of concubines, really, that he lives. So he's not talking about his own privileges, but those below him, and they are going to be targeted, and targeting them and justifying it through permanent revolution. Of course, it's all part of this power struggle that we've talked about. The Cultural Revolution also fits very much into this whole idea of mass mobilization, doesn't it? It's getting people out, getting them excited, getting them motivated, getting them wound up to support the regime and its ambitions, support Mao really in this case and its ambitions. And what we see, which is this really interesting characteristic of the Cultural Revolution, is that it's really young people that are being mobilized here. This is the focus is on people in schools and university students to get them out there and to shake China up. And apparently Mao really did say that. He said, I want the monkeys to storm the palace. So we see the focus on young people. Mao himself is whipped up. His cult of personality, which runs through all this, cult of personality, very, very strong. It's the late 60s. You can almost see a kind of a rock star thing going on. If you ever see any of the huge rallies, the sometimes 1 million plus rallies that are held, especially in Beijing. There's a clip of that in the video I shared with you. He comes across like is almost like Mick Jagger or the Beatles or something. He is the adulation. The students are screaming, and there's Mao. Yeah, the final act of these rallies. So you're mobilizing these young people to really to use them as tools. Yeah, to tear down the system, right? To change everything. And this talk about the four olds, I've written it down here, the old customs, the old habits, old ideas, old culture that's going to be targeted. Yeah? So it's young people's attempt to make the kind of the radical world that many of them dream of. I guess it's the 60s, isn't it? Yeah? And so we see dramatic events like Confucius, the ancient thinker, so important in Chinese philosophical and moral life. Confucius's shrine is desecrated, destroyed by students. So the Cultural Revolution is a very hard episode in Chinese history to really understand it. It's so bizarre. Great Leap Forward is bizarre as well, of course, in its own way. And the impact of this is massive. It kind of shuts down China for years. Schools, for example, these guys don't need the coronavirus to get out of their baccalaureate and for schools to close down. They do it for themselves. They wreck the education system. Teachers physically are major targets of this. Thousands and thousands of teachers are actually killed. Many others suffer in these so-called struggle sessions, these kind of rituals that became part of the Cultural Revolution. A lot of government officials were also key targets. Essentially, the more kind of visible you were in the system, the more associated you were with the way things are, with conformity with the system, the greater target you were. And these struggle sessions were ritual humiliations of people in positions of authority, in which many people died. So you've got almost a chaos being unleashed by the Cultural Revolution. The school system, education system closes down. The economy is very badly hit, and it damages China. Now, we've talked about the damage, and the impact, of course, on China is huge. There is a pushback against the Cultural Revolution in the sense that the army itself has to get involved to calm down the students, and different student groups end up kind of fighting with each other about who is the most radical, who loves Mao Zedong the most, and so we get this state of near civil war in the country by the early 1970s, and of course tensions between the different radicals about how far they want to go. But the moderates in the regime truly are sidelined or even destroyed by this, and although the Cultural Revolution eases somewhat in the years after sort of 1972-73, really only ends with Mao's death in 1976. And then, as we shall see, there's a great reckoning to be paid for who was responsible. Mao is untouchable. Right? If you go to China today, you still see his face on banknotes, his face on posters. Mao is untouchable, but you need to blame somebody for the Cultural Revolution because people know it was a disaster. So pretty soon we see the kind of show trials of John King, his wife, and the so-called Gang of Four, the most radical people that were associated with the Cultural Revolution. When even today, when people in their, I guess, what are they now, in their 60s, 70s, look back at their youth in this period, they see, yeah, we had some fun, I suppose, but our education was really damaged by this, and they recognize the long-term consequences of being used in a way as the great tools of the Cultural Revolution. So thank you for listening to this short chat. Check Edmodo, keep up with Edmodo and the work that I'm putting on there. It should be, if you follow what I've given you there and you keep up to date with our work on China, then you're prepared for the back. Should it go ahead as we have planned, then by following the work on Edmodo, you will be fully prepared. I wish you all the best for now. I hope you stay happy, and we shall be in touch. Right, bye-bye. Bye.